Page 3 in the prayer book. Prayers for the teachings. Lama tomba jomden de deshin sheba ja jomba yanda baso sangye baldan shasu denba deva sheba chedenge gebe duve galo gyuwa lana meba lada me namge tomba sangye jomden de pelkya shagya tubala Shakselo chodo gyapsu jivo. Lama tomba jomdende deshin sheba ja jomba yanda basobe sangye ribadan shasuden. Ewa sheba jedenge bagye budu galo gyu. Lana me ba la da me nam ke tomba sangye chom den de pel kya shakya tu ba la shak sel chodo kyap su chi ho Rama tomba jom den de she ba ja chom ba yan so be sangye re ba da sha su den ba de ba je den ge ba ge bu du vi ga lo gyu wa la nam la da me nam ge tom ba sang ge chom den de pel kya wa sha ge tu pa sha se lo cho do kyap su chi Kanse ganye soho kyo samshe sachen di la gomba dunbone nane jiden di na chu jesu dese ke pa kyo la shak selo nanda kunan cho du su sawa yeshe gyatso sergi limbodra Drapa jete suna la me wa gombo cho ne kyo la shak selo sencho dempa Nirto java kyo la shak selo dujel kyo ja sipa sumachi Nyame kenche kyo la shak selo gombo tu je dempa Damshi kempe tomba bo sona yonden gyatso shin deshin shela shak selo dape do cha je wagyu debe ne sole jo shin jidu don dam jo gyurpa shigyo chola shak selo drone jo we lam yando la ba da la rap tune Jinge dampa yondende, gende vayan shak selo dipa chiyami cha shinge va punso so parchi. Rangi semni yonsudu deni sangi tembayin. Karma rari marmedan, yuma shilpa shubadan. Mila lodan jindabur, dushe chonam ditata. Sonam di tam she se pa ye gopan top ne gyongi ja jute gada nadan chire la trupe zepe sole jowa sho. The indestructible, inconceivable, and inexpressible perfection of wisdom, unproduced, unceasing, the nature of space, object of the uniquely knowing transcendental wisdom, to the mother of the victorious ones at the 3 times I prostrate. Kayata, Gati, Gati, Paragati, Parasamgati, Bodhisattva. Padmasambhava, embodiment of all gurus, devas and dakinis, great Khenpo, Santarakshita, and the Dharma King Trizon Detsen, Nubjin Sangye Yeshe Nyangrel Nima Oser, to you, the 5 pioneers of karma and terma, we pray. Sachin Kunga Nyingpo, who is Vajradhara in person, Sonam Semo and Drapa Gelsen, Sakya Pandita and Chogyal Pakpa, to you, the five founders of the Sakya order, we pray. Marpa Lodro, who is one with Hivajra, Great Milarepa, Peerless Gampopa, Karmapa, Dusam Gempa, and Sonam Dragpa, protector of beings, to you, the five founders of the Kagyu tradition, we pray. Glory Satisha, the same as Buddha Amitabha, Dromton Gelwa Junne and Jenawa Sultran Bar, Kotowa Rinchen Sel and Punchungwa Shonyo Geltsen, to you, the Gadampa's five great spiritual guides, we pray. Venerable Tsongkhapa, who turns the wheel of Buddha's teaching, Gyaltsab, Lord of Dharma, and Kedrup Gelikpal, Gendun Drupa and Panchen Choki Geltsen, to you the five emanation of Manjushri in his ears, we pray. May we and all others enjoy a long life without illness, and may our lives be meaningful and one with the Dharma. By following these supreme spiritual guides, masters of all traditions, may we quickly attain the perfect state of enlightenment. May those noble ones who uphold the non-partisan teaching of Buddha live for hundreds of years, and may their activities increase directions. May the Sangha increase, and may the study and practice of Buddha's teaching spread and grow, and may the whole universe and its three worlds be flooded with the sunlight of auspiciousness. Page 12. Saji Bogi Je Shen Me Do Tra Re Ra Le Je Yamba Sangye Ne Ba Droge Nada Jena Chuban Jetsuma Dhamma Kena Yicho Yugala Yese Jutse Jita Zambe Nujese Bala Zake Choki Charpa Hatu So Vidam Guru Ratna Mandalaka Neyatayame Sangye Chodan Sogi Choknama Janchu Badu Dagi Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunging Ebe Sonam Ge Drula Penjur Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chodan Sogi Choknama Janchu Badu Dagi Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunyen Gebe Sonamge Druva Penjir Sangye Drupa Shok. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings.
동니 ninji song 동주 제제 선생 간전 된주 上那个么点点叫做那所望的所现转转转说，给上他玩这边中国说这边这边他边这把也现在新年去了，查着。电前这我中啊讲，电年东半年东西，电年大王的，电年乌面拉嘛烟那看见，电中嘛烟比去个月吧嘛烟吧，电是东巴嘛烟比去个月吧嘛烟，反正这个拉嘛人本身他给人个外面的说嘛，个人先别搞那些说的，我从头前我做这都是。Oh, good morning, everybody. Hope you all sleep well.
Yeah.
Um, working?
I think so.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. 다른 거랑 저기 러주기나 rol이야. 주주 주소 맞지배. 아니, 다더 간진. 신다냥아 쓰지. 단다.
Flower
장.
of Faith.
어.
Oh,
장 kenze 온비기.
oh.
아니, 간진 신다냥아데 믹스이기 무르도 땡체. 아니 가지고 리메기 아, 최지 장월라. 알라만 늦을 땡고래 쓰지 랍제치도 봐.
And so, in this prayer, the Flower of Faith that we were reciting at the beginning of the teachings, which is written by Jang Khyentse Wombo, and it's a prayer to the non-sectarian master, the masters of the non-sectarian tradition. So it has he specifically draws out the five sort of pioneers, or five of the great masters and pioneers of each of the five traditions that he mentions: Geru, Kaju, Saki, Nyingma, and also Kadam. And so the sort of advice to him from this in this prayer is that if we wish to practice in a sort of non-sectarian manner, then these are the great masters that we should rely on.
어. 다 아, 줄루르메 세야디. 자치 뭐 쉬지고래. 다 줄루르메 자치 뭐 지야디. 줄루 튠제기 개침버리 지고 많이 봐. 개치슈디. 아니, ngaranzugida 계산 깨지 시험은 신. ngaranzul이야. 아니, 가르쳐 올세다. 자다게. 아니, 맨 손을 맞대. 다 동반이 따와들이. 텐데 동이 따와대 때는 밥에 갑라. 아니, 지금 상지 좀 된디기. 아니, 좀더 시. 제라모 너데 심सम바 우마바 시지 시도 송구요래. 디 송야 대양 양지게 강사 민다와 실리아 송바 마임바. 아니 강사직 아니 거기 다외 남샤디 고 띵중기 담려야 아니 만네부터네 아니 다와 콩도 주고 요즘에 아니 주주 가서 그래 가지고 단다 부터 시도 송으로 봐.
And so when we talk about this sort of, the sort of religious traditions, particularly in the Tibetan context, and that sense of having non-sectarian sense within that context, and this is not just talking about just having harmony between the different traditions. That's not exactly what when we say not holding a sort of sectarian position. It doesn't mean just not. It doesn't mean not just being harmonious. It means more than that. And as we were speaking about yesterday, when we talked about what is the the most urgent kind of medicine that we need to seek. And that most urgent of medicines is the view of emptiness and being able to sort of ascertain or delineate exactly what that view of emptiness means. And in relation to this, the Buddha has presented us with a series of philosophical tenet systems, of four philosophical tenet systems of Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Chittamatra or Yogacara, and Madhyamaka. And these four systems are not designed to be a system for four completely different people. They're actually designed as a system for one person to work their way through a sort of increasingly subtle view. And each of those systems, the way they present to a particular person who would be a sort of acceptor of that system, is that they are always presenting the understanding of selflessness in a way which doesn't harm the dependently related kind of world, the dependent relation of things, the dependent origination of things. So that's how the different systems, that all of them are presenting their view of reality, where the view of selflessness doesn't harm the view of dependent origination.
제가 딱 간진 신대 능해기 아니 라라랑기 아니 따와 통주들이야 아니 중세 민라와 만라와 라마스 수기 차시 민라와 요바 디안 민라와 요야디 아니 kuranzo soso shambalo goya jinga zoro mogoya dinde maris. kuranzo gi nalo ta mangche ume tawa dire. kanji shingde nyingen tawa nalo le kewa che wando zempe ume tawa zore. Chezan ume tawa deyang anko tenjung gi tamla manwe tohne ani ko tawa du shishi ya goma wando zempe ani kashi gi karsore tashi jojo gi tohne gom goya. 아니 가시 단단한 주된 제르미치 소문난 신지 아니 랑심에베 따와디 아니 가란주 가서래 아 제바게 금전 다양달의 때니 아니 제바 원도 주베 토네 아니 제바 글리체네 오송공 오를 파 편르지 어두주 rinpoche 송구 요데 그래서 참말로 가서래 samlo tangtang jik mandribi ina ya tsuk chamalo kaka indi besonro ju yore de yana jik samlo tang shinyen jik tangba ina ina chamalo ranzo le nyamlen chebe kabla chang goguyo besonro ju yore es.
And so here, when we talk, when we look then at the sort of various the views and the various schools that developed within inside Tibet, and the masters within inside Tibet, who had, of course, had their different ways of presenting the teachings, and particularly this is in relation to the view of emptiness, particularly all of the basically all of the schools which developed in the land of the snows were always based in the kind of Madhyamaka view. But of course, they and that Madhyamaka view relies on a way in which the middle way is presented in such a way that the view of selflessness or emptiness doesn't cause any is not sort of encroaching on the view of dependent origination, and then these different traditions have different ways of meditating on that and different presentations of it. So, for instance, you see in say the sort of Nyingma school and some of the other non-Galu schools, you see this stronger presentation of what's called being free from the four extremes. And then J. Rinpoche sort of more manifestly states the view, the subtle view of selflessness as being the lack or the lack of an inherent nature. And so in J. Rinpoche's system, you see the way in which when meditating on emptiness, first of all, we develop an inferential valid cognition of emptiness. And then gradually, as our practice deepens, we're able to transform that inferential valid cognition on emptiness into a direct realization of emptiness. So you have these, and so the traditions present things in a different way. There is a sort of they have different styles or different ways of presenting it. But if someone is really, and so they may appear kind of separate and different, but if someone is really conscious and investigating these things carefully, then they will understand that actually all of those things are things that we actually need ourselves in our own practice and way of proceeding on the path.
One time, when I was discussing with my teacher regarding about the different debates between the Sajja Gajwe Nyingma Gyelu about the view, and then there are other great masters, particularly like from Sajja, then also Nyingma, like Mipam Rinpoche, and from Kama Gajwe, I think Kamabo Unshu Doji, right? Unshu Doji. Yeah, Unshu Doji, one of the greatest Kamapa. In their commentary of the Entering to the Middle Way by Chandakirti, there one of the number one opponent is Lama Tsongkhapa. And then they will debate a lot, actually, that and the way of Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, if you bring this sort of meditation, this sort of realization, it is against Buddha's view, especially Pasamkhya view. So, and then not only that, and also they will, in one text particularly, one master would say, the way that Lama Tsongkhapa got all this influence, he says that through the kindness of Manjushri. So now I doubt that Manjushri is the real Manjushri or not. It's there. So then I did a little bit of checking with my teacher. He was so kind to me. Such an incredible teacher. So he said it is important not to do the kebe 좀기 잉된 줄바 좀기 캐주된 줄바 좀기 캐주된 값이야 아니 지게 된다디 도수송 아니 뭐셔세 줄베 뭐셔스나 가사 뭐셔세 시디 디들이 가서래 뜻이 가자고 셰세 줄바 가자고 셰세 하고요
맞다. 가시
뭐다 지게 가려고 그래 지금 냠치해 줘 봐. 냠치해서 나고 그래. Whatever.
맞어.
다 들이 빼나 남주 버셔 셰스 그래. 버셔 셰스도 담배 지기 니주들이 지 춘주지나 아니 가자고 시다 망부 셰체.
그래.
즉 셰체. 야 고사래. 오 딘디지 셰야 될야. 아니 안저기 배 도나마 쳄체. 시기 닝부 된다들이야. 삼로당. 대한 개침부르스. 배나 까마보 온주도지기 제르무치기 송기 따외 따외 제번 조 민두세게. 참될 삼로당나. 저장 란조 단다 길루 시샤체네 아니 동리 공단데 랑심메바 곰 아니 랑심메바 통경게 로데 그봐 랑심메바 통경게 로데 다음에 되게 아니 랑심메바 통데스라버죠레스 데 통제돼야지 rangxin mebe gi lodi gi rangxin meba tong debi na rangxin meba zin du ris. rangxin meba zin so na tagarang di nalo zheba yo ris. Di leba zheba le wando zambe di tando tawa zo yo mar kajin sana kuya tando di zingi duwas. Zimba chunga tawa mingsi.
Sorry about that. So yeah, sometimes we have to be very careful when we're engaging with these different texts and the way that they sort of looking at them from a particular way. So we have to be careful not to take a sort of a small sort of words on the surface level and make it's like kind of like make a mountain out of a molehill sort of thing. So taking a sort of small differences or small things and sort of perhaps misunderstanding it and making something much bigger out of it than it really is. So particularly when engaging with texts from another tradition. So we need to you need to be very careful of that when doing this, and which sometimes when doing that we miss the essence of what is actually being said within that text. That this is the danger that occurs. And so, for instance, Wanchuk Dorji, when he was critiquing Rinpoche's text, it says that as Rinpoche has not got the complete view, and the reason why he says that Rinpoche has not got a complete view of selflessness is that because in the Gelugpa way of the Gelugpa way of presentation and meditation, they meditate on this lack of an intrinsic nature. So the lack of it, the mind, so that presentation of lack of intrinsic nature, and then the mind, which then meditates on the lack of intrinsic nature. So in the Gelugpa system, this is the mind that realizes or apprehends emptiness. It apprehends the emptiness, and then from the critique from masters such as Wanchuk Dorji is that has a kind of clinging to it, is a kind of grasping still there. The mind which is engaging with the object of selflessness itself, or emptiness itself, is a kind of what we call elaboration. So when I forgot to mention before, freedom from the elaborations of the four extremes. So they see this as a kind of elaboration, as a kind of clinging or grasping from the way that the mind sees emptiness itself. So that's how they are critiquing. That's how someone like Wanchuk Dorji would critique Je Rinpoche's view.
There is a point to the Wanchuk Dorji's statement, because when we say two types of meditation, one meditation is space-like meditation, and then illusion-like, right? Illusory-like meditation. So most of you are kind of familiar with these words. So space-like meditation, what does that mean?
Yeah, so there's no sort of obstruction. There's no, space has no obstruction to something.
So not only the object itself, but by the mind. It doesn't.
It's unobstructed.
So at the time, in the Arya's state of mind, and especially on the meditative occupies, at that time, Lama Tsongkhapa also accepts.
So he says that in that meditative state of meditative equipoise, there are no of these sort of mental elaborations.
Then now the debate is not of whether Arya and the Buddha sees the free of the elaboration. That in the both has a common. But the problem is the way of
so the way of sort of the mundane kind of way of seeing the suchness, of seeing suchness. Mundane or worldly, but maybe mundane.
Mundane. No, that's a new word. Mundane. So my teacher would say, because sometimes In a Giluk system also, we need to, when we say, I think better to say this in English, Tibetan. 제가 대코난이 통비가라스 ranzu 아니 유지케요. 유디 랑원의 민두 시체 랑원의 매베 유세 삼로당도 잠베 참제 ranzu게 따왔다는 파베가블이야. 유당 유랑신규 두바세티. 타니도 유베 타니도 유베 최지샤 되네 랑신규 두베 최지 디간 켜용 랑신규 두베 최도 파 샤베 마카베 선도시체 아니 타니도 유베 최도도 슬로라 샤딩에 선도주 요레스 이나연다 마란주 정보시에베이나 아니 참래 안주의 삼로 당도야 단다 주주신 송만나 신체제 아니 랑신기 유베게 나당 아니 타니도 유베 나세 남주 심삼체디가 봐 요도 요래 이나야 아주 단답아도 타니도 유베 나데 패션 통용요 말이스 타니 잠도 유베 나데 통용요 말이스
So, in terms of this, when we're talking about the way of seeing suchness, and so in the way that we would take an object and then we sort of try to investigate whether it exists from its own side or not, and the way that we're sort of in the process of sort of defining or clarifying what the view is, we maybe take a conventional phenomena, and then on the basis, and then we would refute the inherent existence of that phenomena, but we would still be left over with the conventional phenomena at the end. So you have a conventional phenomena, you refute its the inherent existence of that phenomena, and then you still, in some sense, the conventional phenomena is left over. But what the other traditions are sort of saying is that when we talk about, say, two kinds of self, the conventionally existent self and the inherently, and this object of refutation, the inherently existent self, actually, really, we haven't, when we talk about a merely conventional self or a merely conventional phenomena, actually, it's likely that we have actually never had contact with these merely conventional phenomena. So this is a sort of way in which the other schools are looking at Rinpoche, a little bit critiquing them, the system.
제가 말한 적이 참래 야 Rinpoche 송만나신 타니도 유베 나게 띵도 랑신기 유베 나도 까고 그래서 삼당당지 요래데 야 삼로 솔직히 나로라 삼로 솔직히 나로라 아니 가서 단다 삼로 당당 딘디지 삼로 당베이나 아니 말한 적이 똥번이 세도 고용도 잠베 똥번이 고베 따들라 공부루루 니 송고요 동번이 그도 따니 가려서도 당부디 양나네 소놈 친구지이나 아니 배 르네 법부당 미니 치모 좀배 초합배 가디 개발진지 기그레스 가디 가와단 대와 개발진지 기그레스 다 애양 소놈 멤버지 임베나 아니 감라다 샹한 쉬우시 기그레스 다 디인도 좀 디니니 송도 아란조도 차샤베나 참도 동번이라 가도 삼도 당샤베나 디르그 초와디니디 페이지 맵스로 지어라.
Nika
Nika
Mabel. So in terms of this way in which we sort of take what we call a conventional object and then refute the inherent existence of that object, but when we're in the process of doing that, what Nagarjuna says to us is that there are two sort of signs that occur to people when they're going through this process of trying to ascertain what emptiness is by taking a conventional object and then refuting its the inherent existence of it. So those with great merit, when they go through this process, there's a great joy or great bliss that arises in them. And there's another kind of practitioner where a great terror or fright arises in them when they actually, start to understand the real meaning of emptiness. But for us, we probably don't fall into either of those categories.
So,
Mm.
no, I just wanted to. Right. No, I just thought to clarify that when you talk about the self, that the self, there's two layers to it. There's the self, and then there is the self-establishing nature, what's called the inherent nature of it. And so when you refute and remove that, then according to the Galupa position, you're left with the mere self. And so the critique is that you can't actually remove the self-establishing nature from the self and not remove the self at the same time, that the two are tied together. And that's the problem, that's what they're refuting, that you can't possibly posit that there is a mere self that has that self-establishing nature removed from it. That's the point.
제상가 다 딘데 이두 선배 알한줄로 초와 딘데지 마제도 선배 얘기한 게 제상가 땅은 저기 양나니 딘데 초와도 마제나 아주 따와 고기 매버리베 그러와 따와디 고기요 말에 근데 가리긴 줬어요 gengi 양세 끊는 거です.
So so my teacher was sort of saying, well, if this is the case, that we don't, neither of those experiences happen to us, neither the sort of great joy or bliss or the fright. We don't when we're meditating on these things, selflessness, then these things, neither of these arise. So what is that? Is that because we haven't understood the view, or is it what is it? What is it? Something else?
제상 gengi 고랑기 다 게임 망부요래 gen리야 컨디슈체 제상가 제상가 아란주 타니드 유병아 타니드 유병아세야 돼 아니 아주 저름부치 슝카시 나로려야 다메기 켜봐도 마체병아 다다 다음에 근데 닝지 숨부 그들 숨구를 봐 닝지 숨 그들 요래 강야 다단 그래서 랑신 유튜버들은 심어 주고 켜봐 강야 마체베 마장부 통야지 송샤 요래데 얘네디 말저 통투브르베스 빼나 말안조 그도 얘네 당진이 상황진레스 안조를 당진기 말레베 투 매베서 그래 가전스나 냠샤 마토베 만주의 주지 셰바이나 추거버시르 봐. 네 인도 잠베 만주기 아카투이네 최 컨디스 통베이나 랑싱기 두비 최 통고 여러마도 랑싱기 두버도 뭐주고 관계 개발마 최베 최지 통세야 돼. 하나 매베선로지 말레베신 얘기 gengi gen나버저라 건디몽고 슈브리스.
And so my teacher, in relation to this question, my teacher also questioned a whole series of his teachers on this conventionally, the status of this conventionally existent I, which this is related to. And in some of J. Rinpoche's texts, it mentions, for instance, his commentary on the Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti. There's a discussion about 3 levels of compassion. And one of the first level of compassion is what we call compassion referencing or focusing on mere sentient beings. And what J. Rinpoche is suggesting here is that there is a way in which there are states of mind which don't either sort of discriminate as something as or because it's probably the way, engage with something as being engage with the formula as being inherently existent, neither being non-inherently existent, but a kind of intermediate state between those two. But the question that my teacher was raising to his teachers is, can we really see that that phenomena, such as the self? So can we see neither the self in a way that we see it neither as inherently existent nor non-inherently existent? And the reason would be given for this, that because we're always under the sway of the self-grasping at all times, and so it's said that only in the meditative equipoise on emptiness is it true that we don't have the appearance of true existence. So therefore, all conscious states outside of the meditative equipoise on emptiness are called mistaken minds. So they have the appearance of true existence. And therefore, the argument goes that you because you're always under the sway of the self-grasping, that you will be in some way clinging to the object, and therefore you wouldn't be able to. You would always have viewing something or clinging to something within as though it was inherently existent. So would it be possible to have this sort of intermediate state where we neither engage with something as it exists, and engage with it as though it's inherently existent or not inherently existent?
제상가 다디인도 gengi peji 송제 pe디 가르스나 아니 가란즈 보고 충준지기 아니 그 시제고 나로야 또 스테온도 좀베 그런 거 송년 통도 딘데 송년디 미치니 버질 진차비 슈고들라 디 치니버디 치니베기 똥바지 마신게 봐도 그 가두이네디 민어마를 삼디 그래 마도 콜레야 딘데 송년디 통야 통베갑라 아니 거지 디 미치니바 임바다 마임바 니가도 버루를 찬 통야게 뒤지요 말바스 데나신 라운졸이나야 랑신기 모드비기 비게 타니게 최디 마통게 봐도 안절을 가도이네 랑신 그 통동만 말해서 다 gengi debate 마소나 치쇼 어디래다.
And so he gives us an example: a small child when it looks in a sort of in a glass or a mirror and sees a reflection, and until that child is sort of aware of what it means to be, the difference between what a real child or real being is, then in that sense he's not able to sort of look in the mirror, see the reflection, and take it to be a real person. And once they know that it's a real person, once they know that it's, they figure it out that it's not a real person, and they're able to delineate between what is a real person and what is not, then they won't make the mistake any longer. And in the same way, when we, until we're able to understand the lack of inherent existence of conventional phenomena, then until that point, we will not be able to, because there won't be a time when we're able to, there won't be a time when we're not under the influence of, there won't be a time when we're not seeing things as inherent, because we aren't able to, until we've realized the lack, I'll say that again. Until we realize the lack of inherent nature of conventional phenomena, until that point, we will always see things as inherent, as in the same way as the example goes.
So this is a very, I'm saying this because last night I had a dream of my teacher giving this sort of teaching and discussing with this. So I thought, like, why not share with you through this? And not only that, these particularly the non-sectarian masters guidance, the way we just discuss. My last discussion with the late Lama Rinpoche, was this discussion. So I thought that this would be such an auspicious, and Roger lies here. And also Rinpoche, and we discussed, and then Rinpoche asked me, do you time to time read some great masters who repeatedly debate with Lama Tsongkhapa? Do you read these great masters' texts? I said, yes, I do. And then Rinpoche said, then how do you take when, because we are follower Lama Tsongkhapa's view, and then somebody attacks on Lama Tsongkhapa, how do you take it? So then I, with the respect to Rinpoche, Rinpoche knows everything. He wanted to check my way of thinking. So I said, before I go through this text by the great master debating with Lama Tsongkhapa, first I will check that person not only debate with Lama Tsongkhapa, but he also sees the greatness qualities of the Lama Tsongkhapa at the same time. So then, particularly Wonshu Doji, the Kamapa Wonshu Doji, Kamapa Tusum Khenpa, and then also Gunje Mipam from Nyingma, from Sadya, Koramba. All these great masters make a strong kind of statement, and quite a harsh, right?
Harsh words, yeah,
Harsh
harsh words, yeah. Harsh criticism.
But at the same time, they praise Lama Tsongkhapa so strongly, or the same level of on the emptiness level, saying this, you like I think it's Kunji Mifam saying, you are the one who can only lead us by teaching the special teachings on the Tibetan origination, and then can take us to the fully enlightenment. You are only one. So they have all this. So I share with the Rinpoche, when I see this, then I feel confident. So I can not learn only from that master of how to investigate Lama Tsongkhapa's way of thinking, but he really knows what deep inside, what is there for him, that Lama Tsongkhapa can offer to him. So this is what I look into. And then Rinpoche said, well, if you have this kind of master's praise to Lama Tsongkhapa, can you share this to me? So then I share with you in the WhatsApp. So that was a great moment, actually, to visit some Rinpoche. So this is why the invitation I just wanted to, because we did the prayer to the 25 great masters here, and then I thought this is a kind of necessary to explain. Okay, so now 다 계산 인중고의 도스 줘봐. 다 인중고의 조언도 전에 아니 다 삼로 찍나노래야. 녀발도 샤고야지라. 인중 그 삼바 점만 임바지 깨발라. 아니 동리통의 로지기 구르고 말이세. 대양 지난주 샘나 샤에 계시면 됐어.
So yesterday we talked a little bit about renunciation, and then this is one particularly very important thing for us to think about and examine, is if we want to have an uncontrived, if we want to develop in ourselves uncontrived renunciation, then do we need to rely on the view of emptiness to achieve that uncontrived renunciation, or do we need to rely on the view of emptiness or not, understanding emptiness or not?
다 용자도 제베는 먹어요 손으로
Yeah, so generally it's said that you don't need to have the view of emptiness in order to develop uncontrived renunciation.
제가 동해를 타나 아니 지모 롱녀베 로텔라 아니 니중세 삼로지 레요레스.
So if you had that sense of, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could be free of all this suffering, and that alone would qualify for being the mind of renunciation.
다 이나야 삼로야 보지 담베이나 마랑주 코알은 예버 중화세데 아니 아주 동해 숨 시지 송베 나로네 아니 동해 규베 동해 캬바도지 동해 에세데 나로네 다 캬바도지 동해들 삼로당고에 조 차디어와 디인도 잠베 캬바도지 동해 나로 삼로당유도 잠베 아니 마랑주 예월렘베 풍부 디네 카테르고도스 예와 불렘베 풍부 디네 카테바지 제고도 슬라주 잠베 다 삼로 당당 지그 나로라 예와렘베 풍부 디 매바 쇠베 쇠게 탑시지 마토나 봐 딜레 타르고도 삼야기 지보기 하는 안저기 인중 친이 상가지 게 카고를 성부도 가르쳤으나 디 매바 쇠지 통나 신의 애니 제르무치 송만나시 인생분도 타르바 되냐로 세디 제장 타나 냐베 삼로지고 마 임베체 타바 되냐게 로지마 마 임베 경원도 좀 타려야지 독 냐베 로트 깨우 차비 쇼더라 신의 그 셈수는 타나 냐베 로자마 임바 타르사지 도 냐베 로제원도 신의 타바 돈도 로디 기기요를 성구요레스.
And so in relation to this, when we're thinking about whether we need the view of emptiness or not to develop uncontrived renunciation, then this also connects very much with the topic of the three kinds of suffering that we encounter in samsara, and particularly the suffering, the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive conditioned suffering. And so particularly when we're talking about this topic of renunciation and wishing to achieve liberation from all of these sufferings, then we're then encounter this pervasive conditioned suffering. And in order to and when we're talking about pervasive conditioned suffering, we're thinking in the context of the taking on the appropriated, the contaminated aggregates, the appropriated aggregates, and this connects to the sense in which we have to understand how that process, how are those aggregates attained? How do we appropriate those sort of contaminated samsaric aggregates? So that topic is then very closely connected. That is the understanding of one of the understandings of pervasive conditioned suffering. And so if we are not able to see how that process works, and we only have this mind which thinks, may I be liberated from all of these forms of suffering, then even if we have, as J. Rinpoche mentions in his three principal aspects of the path, this criteria for uncontrived renunciation, where we think day and night, we have this mind that wishes to attain liberation from samsara, from suffering. But we also, as well as just having that wish that may I be free from this suffering, we also have to have an understanding of is it possible to be free from this? So this is very important. We have to examine whether it's possible. Is there a place where I can be free, or a situation where I can be free from suffering? And so this connects directly then to the understanding of pervasive conditioned suffering.
다디 년가디야 보시면라 아니 당진디 년다야 추배임바 시토야. 당진이 추배임바 시토야. 로 친주로 시토야. 로 친주로 시토이나 아니 되게 얘기 또또 아로 튼준지 공부되는 때니 아니 되게 좀들로데 신아. 삼로디 백해 전부 찾고 왔어.
And so then this relates to this also then And the mind, the self-grasping, is a mistaken mind. That is actually a kind of it's a wrong mind. It's a completely inverted way of seeing things, and that there is actually an understanding which is in accord with reality, the opposite of that self-grasping. And therefore, if we're able to develop that understanding which is in accord with reality, we will eventually be able to sort of reduce and eventually be able to eliminate this mistaken mind of self-grasping.
다디 인도 잠베 제장가 다 chanju 셈 단다데 chanju 셈고 걸다 아주 조링지 조그레데 다 개체슈데 당보대가란 저게 아니 랑 랑마투바 랑마 지름부치 남림나노야 랑마투바 셴드베 내매도 송번나 신제 랑 틀세데 제장가 랑 틀단데 단다 다 조디 당지 마리바 둘 돼야데 둘 투세를 투사 말에 세 ཉ한테 타 취비 총배이나 아니 신의 랑신게 니 심규디 니가 둘 투바도 냠베 로데도 로 튼딘디 깨차베 쇼라 아니 랑신게 아니 신 마당 안다베 심진 탐제 아니 마당 자와 짠짠 지레 저장 니기 동번이기 된려야 퇴섬 쳐바 될 때니스 저장가 퇴섬 쳐바 될 때니 아니 신기 녀모 도송부터 나데 니 녀모 도송부터 난 잡으래 신기 다면 공부를 때니 아니 당신 시월 치고 나시 니기 엔드로 찍고 지냐라샤 대인도 잠베 니 다면 공부 디 누가 될 때니 아니 니 신기 동에 세토바 지그레 제 토그레 냠베게 로디 경원도 잠베 최상가 다다 람존 람송그 나로를 제름 붙이기 년중 송사베 쇼들 람사 창주 심송도와 돈이다와 송면도와 나 년중기 삼바데 람선 송사베 쇼라 창주 셈데 송제 니에다 슈 잡사디 신기 통이나 랑게 통이 슈 잡사 찍으샤스 어디냐래야 슈 잡사디 찍버 임버디 아니 냠도 카도스 지원도 셈베 저기 랑게 통도랑 신기 통도 고메야 가르레스도 셈베 돈이도 비셔라 타가나시 디디디 고모 텔라 때니 아니 디 랑규 투바치와 지고 마임바 디엔 신규 투바 셰크도 인 슬라반도 셈베 아니 보고지 라브라도베 갑려야 angege ngaran gego gu tondal ya lobjon jang yu se sun ro chagwa
And so in terms of and then the discussion of renunciation there, but then also connecting that with the topic of the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, and there's some very important things for us to think about here. So for instance, in one of his Lam texts talks about how there's no sort of way or there's no place. Thank you. So on, yeah. Should I take this off? Yeah. Yeah, he talks in one of his Lam Rim texts about how there's no way for us or no method for us to try to tame others if we have not already tamed our own minds. So you have to tame your own mind first, and then it's possible to tame others. And so when we're talking about taming our minds or our mental continuums here, then here we're talking about taming the ignorance and the self-grasping, and having, first of all, for ourselves, a very clear decision or decisive sort of way that we are going to do that, to tame our the ignorance and self-grasping within our own minds, and then to be able to help others naturally from that. We will have this kind of wish to be able to help all others, to be able to all other sentient beings to be able to tame their own minds, and to destroy their own ignorance and self-grasping. So we have that sense that they are like me, that if through my own process of hearing, contemplation, and meditation that I'm able to sort of overcome my own mental afflictions and grasping. Through my understanding of selflessness, I'm able to overcome those things. Then also, of course, the others are exactly the same as me in the fact that they can also, through the process of hearing, contemplation, and thinking, be able themselves to then overcome, understand selflessness and overcome their own mental afflictions and mental afflictions and grasping. And then, so then we see through our hearing, contemplation, meditation, we see the way in which it affects us. We see the potential that it has for us to tame our own continuum, and then therefore we're able to see the potential to be able to help others by helping them to reduce the suffering through the same process. And so what you see in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, the three principal aspects of the path, is instead of talking about emptiness after he's talked about renunciation, he doesn't then immediately talk about emptiness, but he talks about bodhicitta. So he connects renunciation directly to bodhicitta before then going on to speak about emptiness. And so so this is how the renunciation for ourselves, and seeing how we tame our own minds, and the renunciation for ourselves then connects to that feeling of bodhicitta and wishing to help others do the same thing. And then in terms of ourselves and others being the same, then he then brings in the meditation on emptiness. And so we have this way in which what we're doing, our process of taming our own minds, in a sense, leads on to a greater kind of context of helping others to tame their own minds, just as in the way a child in school sometimes could have the motivation in school to do his studies for the greater benefit of his country, or another sort of wider context.
다디 인도 점배 당다디 변화 장선 누비 창왕 기타 고주 조비나 안 차상 다디 나로야 자갈게도 부디사도 마니 아발리 배교도 전주선배 누비창왕 두지 정보를 차츠를 라마남로 차츠를 대벨라로 차츠로 시주 점배 제정가든데 장선 누비 창왕디게 담보 차츠사디 두지 정보스 인기 정보를 차츠가 와
So then here, if we begin our studies of the text, the Bodhisattva's Garland of Gems by Atisha, which is here on the printed sheet. And it begins by saying, in the Indian language, Bodhisattva Mani Awali. How did he say Awali? Mani Awali. Bodhisattva Mani Awali. And then in the Tibetan language, Jenchen Senbei Nobui Trengwa, the Bodhisattva Garland of Gems. And then he says, I make prostration to great compassion. I make prostration to the sublime teachers. I make prostration to the Buddha figures, those in whom to have belief. So here we notice right at the beginning of the text one very important point, that the first thing that Atisha is making prostration to is great compassion.
Like the entering to the middle way, the Chandrakirti says, there are so many holy objects that I can pay homage to, but I will choose only compassion here, because through the compassion, then all the other holy object works. So that's why I pay homage to the compassion. Why Buddha is so great, compassion, so kind to us? The reason is the compassion. Why we still can see all these great texts is through compassion. So Here also Adisha, he says, I make a homage to the compassion. 제장가 먼저 민중의 삼로 제원도 잠배 랑딩기 동행의 삼로 당치 딕 자나지 마로 냐베 로딜 때니 민중기 거래 다 신딩을 봐 삼로 당원도 잠배 닝지스지 카파 규르모 유게저라 봐.
So, in terms of the sort of perhaps the differentiating between renunciation and compassion, then renunciation would be sense focused on everything which is our own suffering and the wish to be free from that. Whereas the compassion would be generally focused on others and the wish that they be free from all of their suffering. So it's a way of just kind of shifting the focus in some sense. They're two similar things where we shift the focus from self to others. So, in terms of great traits of this vast mind of bodhicitta, of course, compassion is one of the principal causes of that bodhicitta.
제장가 닝지스도 잠배다 셴기 동에디 자나치 모롱냐베 로트 아타임베 삼로데 리실레고요 델레베가로 니 갱가 따와데 송그레 제장가 셴기 된다 랑기 되니 뽀로려야 캐와신보수 통제 아니 디 캐발 친구주 통대베 이나 셴기 되는데 랑기 되는지 삼로 튜니 셴기 되는데 랑기 되는지 삼로 마코나 아니 가츠시 셴된 체스라나 거로지네 아니 오토제 다 셴기 되는 체도 사마르세야디 잠을 샤야기니 냥가 되들레버스 랑기 되는 셴기 되는 랑기 된다 레샤세 삼로디 저토바디 빼개침부를 송그래.
And so here, in terms of this, the compassion. In terms of compassion and thinking about that the mind which thinks, wouldn't it be wonderful if all others could be free of all their suffering? That's the kind of bottom line for compassion. That's the basic sort of form of compassion here. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all others could be free of their suffering? But my teacher has said many times that if when we say that, but we still see this big difference between our own aims or purpose and the aims and purposes of others, the welfare of ourselves and the welfare of others, if we see a big difference in that, then however much we say, wouldn't it be wonderful if all the other sentient beings could be free of their suffering? We can say that as much as we like, but there's a great danger that we're really not going to be able to develop that sort of proper sense of compassion. So when you're able to see that others' welfare aims or purposes are your own aims or purposes, and then you make you have that mind or make the prayers in that way, or wouldn't it be wonderful if all others could be free of suffering, then that sort of connects together. But if you see a great difference between those two, it's very difficult. There's a great danger that you won't actually develop real form of compassion.
제장하다 아주 제장 전주 선배기 방자 조버디 아니 랑동이 지기 삼바들봐 랑동이 지기 삼바 아니 랑자 조버디 아니 란주 신진생세들봐.
So in terms of the sort of bodhisattva path and the bodhisattvas, then the main object of abandonment, the main thing to eliminate, is our own kind of self-concern and self-interest. And the main thing that we have to take up is the cherishing of others.
다 심벌 손업지 라비나 아니 만주기 남샤균도 당신 다도 데베 당신 당 랑진진이 래 개바지 채용고요. 그래. 제장가 당진 시도 준비 묘몽의 상황진기 삼로치래. 랑진진라 녀바도 묘몽의 상황지가 삼로도 고고요 말에 배나 묘몽 방사위나야 당도 랑진진 라 쓰고 남셔견도 봐. 다디 삼로조 가르 시도 준비 묘몽 방사나양 당동양 랑다 신이 버루를 개발 친구죠 통한지 당이 신 된체도서 말이 섬액 르당지요 르당디 가르치는 리그도 쓰도 잠베 닝지기 누바디 가주 숙충한 연하양 디디 르당 숙체를 두고요 닝지기 누바디 가주 숙체를 두어이나 대주기 바 니 채고스 요레스
So then, in terms of to put this in a kind of simple way, then normally we have to sort of delineate very clearly between what it means to be self-grasping, and then also what it means, what self-interest means. We have to sort of be very clear to delineate those two, because so clinging to an inherent, the clinging to an inherently existent self, and then cherishing or self-interest are different things. So the clinging to an inherently existent self is under the power of is always in the context of under the power of mental afflictions, whereas this kind of self-concern or self-interest doesn't have to be under the power of the mental affliction. So it's possible that even after abandoning all of the self-grasping and mental afflictions, there is still a residue of self-interest. And at that point, even if you've abandoned all of your mental afflictions, if you still have this, you see our own purposes and the purposes of others of having a very big difference, then it's very difficult for us to kind of work for others and to have that motivation for the purpose of others when we see this big difference between our own purposes and others. And therefore, as much as we are able to then develop our compassion and strengthen our compassion, then that compassion will help us to kind of to kind of bridge that gap, but where we're able to reduce our compassion for others will help us to reduce our sort of self-interest and reduce that gap between self and others, and then we will be able to sort of proceed more kind of effectively on the path.
I see this clearly difference between the self-grasping and self-cherishing. For especially that His Holiness Dalai Lama does not have the self-cherishing. I noticed that in, I think it's 2003 or 4, that my monastery and we request His Holiness to give the Vajradhatu initiation in my monastery in Spiti, because we have all the murals and all the whole mandala there. So we request him to give, and then also my predecessor request him to give that. So that time he couldn't. So then in 2003, at the 3 he accepted, but then he was quite sick and he lost his voice. So he was coming from the Arunachal. He gave a lot of teaching there, one monastery, and then he went to Delhi, from Delhi to Shimla, and then to Spiti. He came by helicopter. So me and my monastery abbot went to receive him, and when he was coming from helicopter, he lost his voice, and he started saying Tashidele, which I cannot hear well. And then I was very worried, because now His Holiness cannot give a teaching. And then what can I say is, now take a good rest. That's the only thing. So I escort him to his room, and then with a folded hand, I said, well, now we wanted to request His Holiness to rest for a few days, and please don't worry that many people are gathered here. Please don't worry. I will tell them that you will take a rest. Then His Holiness said, I could hardly hear anything. But His Holiness said, okay, I will rest, but maybe now they are already here. He was a bit worried about that. And then I said, well, if you really want, then I can say maybe people can all sit down, and then you can give a kind of a transmission, like a Omani Pemehon transmission, and then we all recite for a few times, and then you can leave. And His Holiness liked that idea very much. And so that's a very good idea. So then I make an announcement that His Holiness will give the transmission only, and then after the transmission we will recite few prayers, then His Holiness will leave. And people are ready. We are all ready for that. So then His Holiness came and sat on the throne, and then he hold the mic and he started speaking, which we cannot understand very well. He said, now many people are already here, and now I kind of cannot speak much. Then Serkong she told me that to take a good rest. And Rinpoche said, I give a money transmission, and then you all recite. That's a good idea, but I still have a little voice left. Why not use this completely? And then he said, well, you still can understand a bit, right? So bring out the Yuandin Shigurma Karsa. Yuandin Shigurma.
Oh, the foundation of all good qualities.
Oh, that Lama Tsongkhapa's text, you, with the, from my request, we already printed out that booklet, contribute that, distribute that. And then as much as I have a voice, I will use this completely to you. And that was such a great teaching. And then while after maybe 20, 30 minutes later, his voice came back. And then he, almost 2 hours, he kept teaching. And then after teaching, he said, well, then my voice came back and support my today's teaching. Well, went very well. Well, thank you very much. Then he went back tomorrow morning, his voice is completely gone. So who in this earth will do sort of this kind of enlightened activities? So at that day, I kind of, every time when I talk about difference between self-grasping, self-cherishing, that His Holiness does not have a self-cherishing, it always click in my mind. So now it's not to leave only that His Holiness has this quality, but can we have that? Do we really need it? If we say, as at the beginning of our session, we always recite, so we say this. So now it's really true. Then this is what we really need to eliminate, not only the self-grasping, the self-cherishing. If we cannot bring down the self-cherishing, and we will never ask for effortlessly to work for sentient beings. We will never ask this. So we have this karasa shendun beme lunjutubiku.
So the body of the Buddha, which works for the welfare and purposes of others, spontaneously and effortlessly.
So we will never ask for that. So here now, Tuji Chimbolo Chasolo, great compassion. My way of understanding of this, I also mentioned that to Simon this morning. This Tuji Chimpo is not the chenrisik, the form, the body, but the compassion itself. And then Lama Namla Chatsa, no? I noticed there are two types of translations.
There seem to be two versions of the precious, the Bodhisattva Garland of Jewels, two different recensions of the translation, probably.
In here, it says homage to the compassion, and then the homage to the Lama, and then homage to the Tebelhala. So in other translation, it goes like homage to compassion and homage to the Tebelhala.
Yeah, so the deities of faith.
Deities of faith, and then Lama Lachatsaro.
And then homage to the lamas of the gurus.
So I'm thinking maybe this is my understanding. First, we see the qualities of the compassion and make a homage to that. Then we make a homage to the Tebelhala Chazal, the Chenrisi. Tha, the deity. And then Lama. Because who is that now Chenrisi? That's not other than your Lama. So then it goes to the Lama. So I put it third. So that's my way of thinking. Maybe wrong, maybe right. Who knows? Okay. Sure.
Just to I press the record?
It's okay. No.
No?
No. Again.
Nothing.
There. Speak.
Okay. Just to provide a little bit of context of this difference between grasping for a self-established me and the self-cherishing. What's behind it is that when you speak about the constant habits of this grasping, you have to understand that grasping has two meanings. One is that these constant habits, which are constant, so it's every moment it's having an effect, makes an appearance of self-established existence. You know, there's something on the side of the object that has the power to make it exist. That's what's usually translated as inherent existence, but it's self-established. So there's the appearance of it. And then the second meaning of grasping, and included in that first one is that you perceive it, that people, that it appears and you perceive it. Second aspect of it is that you take it to correspond to reality. So when you speak about getting rid of the grasping for self-established existence that causes the disturbing emotions, the disturbing states of mind, anger and so on to arise, that's because you've gotten rid of this taking these appearances to correspond to reality. Take it to correspond to reality, then, there's this solid me, I don't like this, I want that, etc. You can get rid of that So then you achieve, let's say, liberation. So now liberation, you don't have the gross disturbing emotions. You have what's left with what's called the subtle disturbing emotions. And what's the problem here is that there's still, because of these constant habits, it's making the appearance of self-established existence. And the appearance of self-established existence is that there's the appearance of a self-established me and a self-established you. That's why you still have self-cherishing, because their mind is still making that difference, self-established difference between me and you. And then on the basis of that, you have what's called the subtle disturbing emotions. So this is what His Holiness has gotten rid of both of them, which is only possible with enlightenment. So that's what's behind what Rinpoche was explaining.
Thank you for the clarification. So I think, so we will take a break now. 30 minutes break, right? Okay. 15? Okay. Okay. Sure.
Like 30 minutes break.
Okay. 30 minutes break then. Okay. Okay. Yeah. 사시 부지 주제 벤도 담아레로 내시 닌덴 잠반데 산지 신도 미데 베와 드게 남도 젠어버소 이담 보로라나 아니연다 야메 I was good.
I'm also your tea attendant.
Was that?
I'm your tea